Hello, this is Nate. I'm the leaf assistant at Common Good City Farm. This is what we're doing for our Sunday lesson this week. I'm videotaping from my home, pre-recorded. My mom is behind the camera. She's helping me out this week, and we're doing a lesson for Black History Month about George Washington Carver. The reason why we're doing a lesson here today is because we are doing a recipe. So I'm cooking here in my home. These are black-eyed peas or cowpeas. Yeah, so George Washington Carver was born around in 1864, sometime during the Civil War is what people think. We don't really know his exact birth date because for a lot of people who were enslaved back then, their birth dates were not recorded. Yeah, so he was accepted into Highland College in Highland, Kansas, but they did not admit him into the school. They revoked his admission when he arrived, and they discovered that he was black. So then after that, he worked on a plot of land. He homesteaded on this plot of land and conducted his own biological experiments. In 1890, George Washington Carver enrolled in Simpson College in Iowa, and he was studying art and music. While studying art and music, he did a lot of drawings of plant life, and his art professors suggested that he study botany because he clearly had an interest in it. So then, from that suggestion, he enrolled into Iowa State Agricultural College, where he studied botany, and he eventually got a master's degree. So he studied plant pathology for his master's at Iowa, and he worked at the experiment station that they had there. The U.S. government gave a lot of money, gave money to various colleges, higher educational institutions to develop programs to study agriculture in different experiment stations. And these were called land grants and land grant institutes. So Iowa was one of those, and he studied at the experiment station there, and that's where he first started to gain a reputation as being a brilliant botanist. So then from there, Booker T. Washington, who was another great African American who made contributions to agriculture in a lot of fields in terms of manufacturing and developing the industrial power of black people, he then recruited George Washington Carver to work at the college that he founded, Booker T. Washington founded himself, Tuskegee University. And at Tuskegee, George Washington Carver also worked with the experiment station. And with his work with the Tuskegee experiment station, that's where he came up with all these ideas about the peanut and the legumes, and really developed and promoted a lot of practices, a lot of organic, sustainable practices, and promoted those into the black community in the South. Yeah, so while at Tuskegee, that's where a lot of his main contributions were made. They developed a lot of methods for crop rotation, ways of diversifying crops, and creating new cash crops outside of cotton that people can grow in order to make their livelihoods more stable. So that's why today we're cooking, cowpeas. Cowpeas are a crop that were originally domesticated in Africa, and they're a legume, and George Washington Carver knew that legumes take nitrogen, which is one of the most important nutrients for plants. It's the nutrient that plants need to make their leaves, and it's in all the green in their stalk. It's essential for plants to be able to photosynthesize and to grow in their earlier stages in the vegetative stage. So these plants, the cowpeas, the peanuts, all these beans, they have a relationship with bacteria. They're able to take nitrogen out of the air and put it back into the soil, and that's why they're beneficial crops to the soil. This is also a very easy crop to grow. As I said earlier, I grew these cowpeas myself. So we had to soak them last night, and I've already cooked them just to save on time, so we could do more talking as opposed to more, Yeah, so this crop grows pretty easily, and it's also very good for the soil, so it can be used as a cover crop, and that's what we were using it for. In the same ways that George Washington Carver was promoting it to people, you know, me with my job where I work at the farm at Kelly Miller, we are still using those same techniques and even the very same crop that he was promoting to help get our soil and help build up our soil and make, you know, and make our livelihoods more stable. Okay, so as we said, today's recipe is creamed peas. It's actually a very simple recipe. I use, you know, peas directly out of the garden, so I had to soak them first, but it's perfectly fine to just use a regular can of black-eyed peas from the store. Yeah, that's another thing. The George Washington Carver calls them cowpeas. When you search cowpeas on the internet, what will pop up is black-eyed peas. If you were to Google cowpeas, black-eyed peas are cowpeas. They're the same exact thing. They're a crop that was first domesticated in Africa, and then it moved to Asia. It's also grown in parts of Asia, and yeah, it's used as for the beans because they're very nutritious, high in protein, like all other beans. They're real easy to grow. They're good for the soil, and they're also good foliage for cattle and other animals to eat as well. So very useful crop, and that's why he was promoting it as a part of the Tuskegee Experiment Station, which I think I forgot to mention is in Alabama. Tuskegee University is in Alabama. So George Washington Carver was born in Missouri, got studied and trained in Iowa, and then did most of his research and teaching at Tuskegee University in Alabama, in Tuskegee, Alabama. And that university was started by Booker T. Washington. And it was it was built by him and built by the students there, and it was an industrial school to teach people how to do things like farm and build and manufacture. So this recipe is real simple. It's just taking the beans and then putting them in some cream, adding your sugar, and if you want to add butter, you can add butter, and then just whipping them up is really all there is to this recipe. Yeah, very simple recipe that anyone can make with the cream peas. I tried some. I was thinking it would taste real good as like a breakfast food, to eat this for breakfast. It's real sweet, and you add a little salt to the black-eyed peas, and yeah, it's like a sweet, salty taste. It's real good. It's actually pretty delicious. Put all these cowpeas in here. Yeah. Yeah, there's not much to this recipe, so it's just a good thing. I think it would be really good to just start your morning with a recipe like this. Yeah, and that's the reason why George Washington Carver was even showing these recipes. It was just quick and easy things you can do with the crops to make them so you can get good usage out of crops that are also good for the ground. Like he talks about how this crop is, how it'd be indispensable to our diet because of how nutritious it is and how easy it is for us to grow. I'm just whipping it up a little bit to mix them together, the cream and the black-eyed peas. Yeah, that's really all you need to do. This cream is actually some cream I made myself. Cream that we made, me and my mother made, because I don't eat dairy products, so I made cream without any milk. It's the juice from a can of chickpeas, a little cream tartar, which you can find at any grocery store, and then some powdered sugar and vanilla, and just use the hand mixer to mix it up until it got fluffy and airy, and then that's all that is. And yeah, putting in the peas, and this is what we get. Yeah, so recipes like these were supposed to be easy recipes that could be incorporated into the diet of poor black farmers in the South to promote them growing these crops. Other ways that he tried to do outreach to the poor black farmers was with this invention he had called the Jessup wagon, which was just a horse-drawn wagon that he would take around Alabama to show people how to grow different crops he wanted them to grow, be it peanuts or sweet potatoes. He also advocated for people growing sweet potatoes and came up with a bunch of recipes and things for sweet potatoes. So I was really deciding between the cowpeas and the sweet potatoes to demonstrate a recipe and to talk about his work today. But yeah, so he used the Jessup wagon, which was one of the first, probably the first mobile education outreach that was ever conceived in America and used here. And now, you know, we have mobile outreach education still going on, just with automobiles instead of horse-drawn wagons. But so yeah, he made a lot of contributions to agriculture, but he also made contributions to education. Yeah. So in conclusion, George Washington Carver made a whole bunch of contributions to agriculture. Mainly, he promoted cover cropping, which is what I was talking about how using the beans, they're nitrogen-fixing plants, and there are other plants too, not just legumes, but other grasses too. They also promoted. They take the nitrogen out the air and put it back in the soil so that the plants can have nutrients into the future. Every crop takes nutrients out. Some crops can put nutrients back in. And yeah, he just kind of promoted people having a better understanding of the ecosystem when growing crops in the South. And this is very important because all of American agriculture really comes from slavery, and in the slave agricultural system, there is no consideration for anything aside from profits. There is no consideration for the broader environment, how to coexist with that, and there was no consideration for the labor that it took to grow the crops, the people who actually grew the crops. You know, so it was just an entirely abusive system in terms of people as well as nature. So what he tried to do was teach the people who, you know, years ago were the descendants of the enslaved or would have been the enslaved who were newly freed. He was showing them growing techniques that could improve their livelihoods while coexisting in nature, so they didn't just grow cotton, you know, and just exist within the system of sharecropping, which was very, very similar to slavery. Yeah, and plenty of African Americans made contributions to agriculture after him. Booker T. Whatley, who is named after Booker T. Washington, also worked at Tuskegee, but in the 20th century was dealing with many of the same issues as to how to keep poor, smaller black farms productive and profitable. And he created all sorts of plans and how all sorts of advice to people in the 20th century, much like in the mid to late 20th century, really the second half of the 20th century, in the way that George Washington Carver was doing it at the start of the 20th century. Yeah, there's plenty of other people to look up. You can Google George Washington Carver, Booker T. Whatley, Fannie Lou Hamer, all kinds of people who did agriculture, all kinds of African Americans who made contributions to agriculture. And there's plenty of great children's literature out there. But yeah, I'll try this on camera for you all to see just how delicious it is through my expression. And you can live vicariously through me. What are you talking about? Are you getting the fork? Mm-hmm. Okay. Yep, it's real good. Would you like to try some, Mom?
Yeah. It's delicious.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time. We'll see you next week, where Miss Swan will be interviewing our new farm project manager, Mark, for the next Instagram Live leaf lesson on Sunday. Okay.